Let's get right into it. Today, we're diving headfirst into the absolute chaos that is our modern digital world. I mean, think about it. We are literally constantly surrounded by screens, buzzing alerts, just a total tsunami of data. But how is all this information actually rewiring our society? And more importantly, what is it doing to our democracy? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down some seriously profound ideas to help you spot the hidden structures running our digital lives.
So, let me ask you something right off the bat. Do you feel free when you're posting, liking, and sharing on your smartphone? You know, when you're just mindlessly scrolling through your feed, picking a video, maybe firing off a quick hot take, it feels like ultimate freedom, right? You're completely in control at your fingertips. But what if I told you that this exact feeling of freedom might just be the most effective form of control we've ever invented?
To answer that pretty heavy question, we're going to use an incredibly fascinating book as our guide. It's called Infocracy by the philosopher Byung-Chul Han. Now, Han is an absolute master at taking a step back and dissecting the invisible power structures that actually dictate our everyday behaviors. So we're going to visually deconstruct his arguments and see exactly how our obsession with information has fundamentally changed the whole world.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit 5 key concepts. First, el régimen de la información. Second, evolución de los medios. Third, la democracia como infocracia. Fourth, el fin del discurso. And finally, la crisis de la verdad. Let's jump in.
Sección 1. El régimen de la información.
Now, look at the striking contrast between how things used to be versus where we are now. Back in the industrial age, we lived in what philosophers like Michel Foucault called the discipline regime. Basically, power was all about controlling physical bodies. It relied on strict rules, physical coercion, and isolation to basically turn people into compliant workers, like literal cogs in a machine. But today, we live in the information regime. Power isn't about forcing your physical body to do things anymore. It's about steering your mind using data and networks. And honestly, the absolute genius of this new regime is that it doesn't use force at all. It uses the illusion of freedom. You feel authentic, you feel creative as you endlessly generate the exact data that allows you to be analyzed and managed.
Just think about the architecture of these two eras. It really says it all. Old power relied on structures like a panopticon, a prison where inmates are isolated and watched without even knowing it, or ancient temples shrouded in darkness where only priests were allowed inside. It was all about secrecy and isolation. But modern power? The ultimate symbol of modern power is an Apple store, literally a giant glass cube. It's total transparency. The information regime absolutely thrives on constant connection and our willing self-exposure. We aren't forced to share, we are literally desperate to be seen. But here's the catch, the transparency is only on our end. The algorithms that manage all that data, total black box.
Moving on to Section 2, Evolución de los medios.
It's pretty wild how the dominant media of an era completely dictates how a society thinks. Back in the 19th century, the book was king. And books, they demand time, focus, and logic, so they foster deep, coherent, and highly rational political discourse. Fast forward to the 20th century, and television takes over. This created what we call a mediocrity. Suddenly, politics wasn't about the best argument, it became a passive spectacle. It was all about the best performance, the flashiest image. And now, here we are in the 21st century, and the smartphone has birthed the infocracy. Communication isn't deep anymore. It isn't even passively entertaining. It is frantic, it's fragmented, it's highly addictive, and it's driven entirely by whatever goes viral.
There's a quote comparing 2 classic dystopian novels that just hits the nail on the head here. In 1984, men are controlled by inflicting pain. In Brave New World, they are controlled by providing pleasures. Han points out that our current digital reality is way closer to Aldous Huxley's Brave New World than George Orwell's 1984. We aren't being tortured into submission by some scary totalitarian state. Nope, we are literally amusing ourselves to death, constantly pacified by the endless dopamine hits of likes, shares, and a non-stop stream of entertainment.
Which brings us directly to Han's core concept, Infocracy. Essentially, it's the crisis of democracy playing out inside this new information regime. It triggers when our society is flooded by an overwhelming tsunami of data, what we call an infodemic. Because this information spreads like wildfire and demands instant knee-jerk reactions, it leaves zero time for slow, rational thought. The shared public sphere just shatters into millions of private, isolated screens.
All right, Section 3, La democracia como infocracia. to really grasp how this impacts elections, we have to talk about psychometria. Basically, this is a data-driven process used to build an incredibly deep psychological profile of you. Hahn argues that our smartphones are effectively psychometric recording devices. Every single time you click a link, linger on an image for a few seconds, or type a random late-night search, you're feeding data straight to algorithms. And those algorithms map out your subconscious traits, sometimes predicting your behavior better than your closest friends could. It's wild.
So how is this actually weaponized during an election? Well, it comes down to a strategy called micro-targeting, and it works like this. Step 1, tech companies harvest a constant stream of data from your daily smartphone habits. Step 2, they use that data to build those deep psychometric profiles of voters we just talked about. Step 3, they deploy highly personalized dark ads and fake news right into your feed. These are ads tailored specifically for you that nobody else sees. And finally, Step 4, by triggering your highly specific fears or desires, they bypass your rational brain completely. They subvert your conscious, democratic choices right at the subconscious level. And look, this isn't some conspiracy theory. It's exactly the playbook companies like Cambridge Analytica used.
Modern elections aren't really debates anymore. They are full-blown information wars. Just look at the modern arsenal. We've got social bots impersonating real humans to artificially inflate outrage. We've got massive armies of trolls spreading conspiracies just to poison the well. We have memes, which Hahn brilliantly compares to a virus infecting the network almost instantly. And of course, weaponized fake news. What do all these weapons have in common? They entirely prioritize fast, visceral, emotional reactions over slow, logical arguments. I mean, you can't really debate a meme, right? You just feel it and you share it.
That leads us to Section 4, El fin del discurso.
Han makes a really compelling point here. The crisis of democracy is actually, deep down, a crisis of listening. The very architecture of the internet kind of destroys the presence of the other. Because the algorithms are constantly feeding us information that just confirms what we already believe, we get completely trapped in these narcissistic filter bubbles. We splinter off into hyper-specific digital tribes. And when you're deeply entrenched in a digital tribe, you don't engage with opposing viewpoints. You don't try to understand them. You just block them, cancel them, or scream at them. We essentially lose the shared reality that you actually need to have a functioning conversation.
And as human discourse just kind of breaks down, a new ideology steps in to fill that void. It's known as dataism. Honestly, it's almost a totalitarian religion at this point. It's the belief that big data and artificial intelligence can perfectly calculate and manage society. Data is basically argued that society has become way too complex for messy human debates. They think that if we just hand the steering wheel over to the algorithms, they'll magically optimize our lives without us ever needing politics again.
So the crucial point here is this stark, fundamental contrast between human and machine. True democracy relies on what we call communicative rationality. That means actual humans debating, arguing, learning from mistakes, and eventually hashing out a consensus. Yes, it's slow, yes, it's messy, but dataism promotes digital rationality. This relies entirely on AI, data mining, and machine learning to quietly optimize behaviors in the background, completely bypassing any human input. Digital rationality doesn't want citizens to debate. It just wants users to generate data. It literally threatens to make the concept of a democratic citizen completely obsolete.
And finally, Section 5, La crisis de la verdad.
To really understand this crisis of truth, we have to look at how lying itself has evolved. According to Hahn's analysis, back in the 20th century, dictators relied on totalitarian lies. Thinkers like Hannah Arendt pointed out that these were massive, highly organized fictions specifically designed to replace reality entirely. But the modern information society? It's a completely different ballgame. Drawing on the philosopher Harry Frankfurt, Hahn points out that modern political figures, and he points specifically to Donald Trump's communication style as a prime example, often deploy what Frankfurt technically labeled as bullshit. Now, this isn't about meticulously building a grand fake reality. It's simply a total blatant indifference to facts. The only goal is to trigger quick emotional reactions and consolidate power right in that moment, regardless of whether something is technically true or false.
Which brings us to a really profound realization. We are currently drowning in information, but we are completely starved of truth. Think about the fundamental difference here. Truth is a narrative. It's stable, it provides deep meaning, and it takes time to build. Information, though, it's just additive, it's fleeting, it just piles up endlessly. Scrolling through a news feed doesn't give you the truth, it just blasts you with a deafening noise of data points that wash away the stability we actually need to find real meaning.
So, the big question, how do we fight back against all this? Well, Hahn points back to the ancient Greeks and to Foucault's concept of parrhesia.
Parrhesia is the heroic courage to speak the truth even when it is physically or socially dangerous to do so. True democracy absolutely requires this. It's not just about having the technical freedom to tweet whatever gets the most likes or whatever sparks the most outrage. It's about an active, courageous commitment to speaking truth right into the noise, because truth is ultimately the only thing that actually binds a society together.
Which leaves us with this final thought. If, as Byung-Chul Han suggests, truth doesn't make noise, but the endless stream of digital information is absolutely deafening, how are you going to listen differently tomorrow? How will you step outside your filter bubble and actually seek out the quiet truth? Take a second to think about your own habits the next time you unlock that screen. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.